Hi, everyone. Hope you're well. We don't have a ton of updates, but I shall dive in here. We have a total of 1,313 cases with 43 fatalities total. And I wanted to issue a correction. I apologize for this. Yesterday I provided information about a 26-year-old young man who passed away. And I said that he had died in the Whaley Avenue Correctional Facility that's run by the State Department of Corrections. The individual was in that facility, but died 2 days after he left the facility. So he did not die while in custody in that facility. I apologize for that error. Before I turn it over to Director Bond, and then I believe Chief Reyes also may be joining by phone, I wanted to highlight that I spoke with several funeral home directors today, and we're talking about a variety of issues around the response to COVID-19. But one of the things that they raised is, and they asked me to do, is to reach out to families and notify families that may have loved ones that are sick and may pass about what they could expect as far as a way to mourn. And I think in this time, given social distancing and given the extreme measures that we all need to take to protect our loved ones, it's very, very difficult to not have the funerals and not mourn loved ones as we typically do. The funeral directors have asked me just to share that that families should not expect and not advocate to have funerals where people are gathering in person, because that puts many people at risk. And instead, to do their best to mourn remotely and with each other, without physically being together, and to know that down the road, once this passes, that they should expect and plan for a much more personal, intimate gathering. But at this moment, it's important for people to know and support funeral directors when they say that it's not the time for many people to gather together. I think that's something tough for a lot of people to hear, but it's so critical to protect our own family members. I've been calling the loved ones of family members that have passed over the past several weeks. And I want to take a moment to underscore just how difficult the job is of funeral directors and how much I admire the work that they're doing to be there comforting loved ones that have lost someone very close to them. And to support them while at the same time putting themselves and funeral staff at risk is something that they are doing as a service to the community, and I deeply respect the work that they're doing. I do not have any other updates at this moment. Maybe I can turn it over to Director Bond for a nursing home update.
So, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Mayor. At this juncture, the report remains the same from yesterday, and I can certainly share those numbers again if anyone has any question from my report yesterday.
Okay, and I also see Chief Reyes, you just joined.
Sir.
Are you on, Chief?
I am. I apologize for the technical difficulties. I am on, sir.
That's no problem at all. So yesterday, Tom Breen from The Independent had asked for an update on the individual that was in New Haven's lockup facility that passed away. And so I asked the chief to join the call to share some additional information on why that individual passed away.
Yes, sir. So good afternoon, everyone. And so we continue to conduct that investigation. In addition to our investigators, I've had the State's Attorney's Office team up with us as an additional layer of oversight because he did pass away in our facility, and for the sake of transparency. So we are conducting that investigation. A post-mortem exam has been completed, and the results of the exam all point to a suicide. But however, there are components of the post-mortem that are still pending and we're waiting for, such as toxicology. I also ordered an internal investigation of the incident to review all of our protocols and procedures to make sure that incident was handled the way it was supposed to be internally.
Thank you, Chief.
You're welcome.
I don't have any other updates. Are there any questions from folks? Okay, we can start with Paul.
Thank you, Justin, and hello, everybody. I hope you're well. Justin, should I start with one and then save a couple for later?
You can give a couple and then we'll switch to someone else and come back to you.
Okay, just wondering with Chief Reyes, how does someone commit suicide in the lockup? What do they have access to? How did this person die?
So this individual was in his cell. So you should know that pretty much every corner of the detention facility is monitored by video cameras. This incident was captured on video, and so that'll be part of the investigation. The individual took his pants off and utilized his pants to commit suicide.
It's very sad. Thank you. And, you know, Whaley, Justin, the obituary of the person who died 2 days after leaving Whaley jail said he did have COVID-19. Is there a COVID-19 breakout at the Whaley Avenue jail?
As you know, we don't run that site. I'm unaware of any outbreak at the jail. And I think that it's important to contact the state if there are questions specific to that site.
Thank you. Do you want me to ask the third one or hold off?
Go for it.
Okay. So today Congress is passing, I believe it might be the fourth Emergency COVID Relief Act. They've spent billions of dollars. And I think everybody agrees that in New Haven and nationally, it's been a complete disaster getting the aid to the people who need it most. New Haven, that meaning minority-owned businesses who have been the least able to get in line to get the money. You're right, you don't run that. What can be done or will be done either by city government, by grassroots groups, when this new money comes in to enable minority-owned enterprises and others to get a first crack at it?
So we discussed this on our morning call, our command staff call. And our economic development department is reaching out to community groups and neighborhood groups to make sure that people understand how to apply for the funding, because I think that's the first thing is, at least in the other tranches that have come out, there's almost a race to the funding, and many small businesses have not had access to the funding. My understanding from comments by Senator Chris Murphy is that there is a set aside for small businesses with this newest set of money. I'm not sure if that's been changed by Congress, but my understanding is there was a set aside for small businesses, because that's an important element of making sure that particularly the businesses that you highlight have access to money. And I think that this is going to be a consistent problem because there are so many people around the nation that need so much money, and it's basically a race to get the access to this money. It's a very difficult situation. We will do our part to educate as many residents as possible about the options that are available.
Just if I could throw in one thing I'm hearing. So part of it obviously has nothing to do with you. They call small businesses under 500 people, and they include chains breaking them each up. But there are a lot of documents you need when that race starts. Quarterly financials, your last tax return. I'm wondering if there's help, the way that the city does such a good job in working with the community to do income tax prep. I'm wondering if that same team can do advanced document prep, because when we applied, we found that that's where the scramble was on.
That's a good suggestion. We stood up our Financial Empowerment Center to help support people that were struggling to access some of the services. And I'll pass along that information as well. I think at this time, and you know, when you're talking about VITA, for example, there are so many people that volunteer to work for VITA. It's a pretty easy way for people to get involved and have a significant impact. And so I suspect, because there are so many people that want to volunteer to help out the community now, that we could tap into that volunteer base to help support small businesses like you're suggesting.
Thank you, Justin.
Thanks for the suggestion. I see Kyle with her hand up.
Hi, everyone.
You're back.
I am back in the thick of COVID coverage. A couple questions for you guys. The first one is there any update on the third coronavirus testing site? While I was out, I saw that there's one planned for the Dwight neighborhood.
So we really wanted to give you an update on this call, but we're very close to finalizing this, but not 100%, and we don't want to share any more details until it's finalized.
Okay. The second question is, we got an email from someone who says that they work in one of the city contracted hotels where the people who are experiencing homelessness have been moved, and they're telling us that there are positive people in there that are quarantining. Can you speak to that at all?
I can. I'm happy to get more information if that is the case. I'm happy to get back to you on that.
Okay. Thank you. And then my last question is, if there's an update on last week, Chief Reyes gave some information about how the police department is adjusting their response times to certain calls. I'm sorry, not times, but procedures to certain calls. Could we go over that again just to see if there's any changes now that there's more positive tests in the department?
Yeah, and just to Chief Reyes, what I think Kyle's referring to is that there was questions about how you've been able to reduce the number of people in the department that have been exposed to COVID-19, because initially there was a pretty big bump in number of police officers that were exposed. And of a variety of things that the fire department and police department have done, I mentioned that police officers are not responding to medical calls unless there's an indication that there's an officer needed there.
Yeah, that's correct, Mayor. I think initially, we were all sort of navigating through, this sort of COVID-19 phenomenon and adjusting, right, all of our respective responses and departments to adjust to the pandemic. And so I think part of it was we did some immediate changes to, again, our response protocols. More importantly, we also made some changes to our internal practices to prevent outbreaks from within the department. And so if we did have an officer that was exposed either through an encounter at work, through one of the calls, or at home because of someone at home, what we wanted to do was limit the amount of exposure that would cause to other officers, and limit the spread of it. And so we, I think like all of us, got more efficient at doing that. And so we've established some pretty strict protocols from within the department. We're doing temperature checks of everyone coming in, both our non-sworn and sworn staff. And we are communicating with our personnel and making sure that we're just engaging in good practices within the department to prevent the spread. And that, in addition to the external sort of response protocols that we implemented, has helped us keep the spread contained within the department.
Okay. And how is your PPE? You guys have masks, enough masks and things like that?
Well, yes. First of all, I want to say, thank you to the efforts of, everyone within the city, people like Rick Fontana and the health department and other folks who have been working hard to get this PPE. Obviously, it's something that everyone is trying to get their hands on. And so we've also been getting a lot of donations from people outside, just regular folk that are deciding to make donations to first responders. And so that has been great for us. And so it's really helped us create a stockpile of equipment. And we've been doing our inventory. We're doing really well. And we've been trying to control our burn rates so that we make it last as much as possible, because we realize everyone needs it, especially our healthcare workers. So we are being very efficient in the use of it, but also we're the benefactors of much goodwill from around the city and the state, where people are donating. So we're doing well.
Okay, thank you very much. That's it for me.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Any other questions? Going once, going twice. All right, thanks everybody. Good to see you. Take care.
You're welcome.